There's something that I think about as a golfer and a golf instructor quite often, kind of around the impact alignments and how truly like how hard golf is. That blows my mind all the time. Like I've known this information for the most part for a very long time, but it never ceases to amaze me how such small differences in the alignments and impact can make a massive difference on the outcome of ball flight. And I have one kind of newish piece of information that recently blew my mind even more kind of on the subject. So the thing that I think about a lot is this stuff, face angle. Like what is the twist? What is the face doing at impact? That's like obviously massively important for start direction, curvature, spin loft, how solid the contact is. Like all that stuff, super duper important. We all kind of know that. What's super interesting about this is that from all the research that I've seen and the smart people that I've listened to and talked to, there are very few things from a technique perspective that can make it better to be more predictable at this. Like in a big data general sense, like there's very few things that are like, hey, if you do this, you will guarantee to have more control over that face, right? And in my opinion, that's the reason the best golfers in the world are as good as they are. So Scotty Scheffler, the reason he's number one in the world versus a guy that's 140th in the world, in my opinion, is his control, if you want to use that word, don't love that word, his management of this. Just literally the twisting of the face. He, for whatever reason, is more predictable than the guy that's 125th on tour with that. He's probably not any faster. He may be in a certain scenario, but like Scotty's not like super duper fast. It's not like he's an incredible putter necessarily. He's a very good putter, but it's not the strength of his game. Like the strength of his game, along with some other stuff, probably some mental stuff, but is literally like the ability to predict and control what this face is doing and match it up with his intentions, right? That's what makes him great. His golf ball goes where he wants it to go more oftentimes than the guy that's 125th on tour. And what's crazy about it is the really small, minuscule things that we're looking at. I even think it's fascinating that a 10 handicap, or maybe even kind of your average golfer, can control this thing as well as they can. If you really start thinking about what we're doing here, it'll blow your mind. So I tell this to golfers all the time, beginner, new, whatever, doesn't matter, really good golfers. I explain this kind of thing of like, hey, this is why golf sucks. This is why golf's hard. So, scenario here, if I'm hitting a driver and I have my club face open 6 degrees in impact relative to what it would normally be, the golf ball is going to go about 45-ish yards right. If I have that club face 6 degrees left at impact, the golf ball is going to go about 45 yards left. So 90 yards difference, 12 degrees of difference in the face, right? Well, if you start thinking about it, so two things. We're swinging this club at over 100 miles an hour, right? Sometimes in like a Rory example, 120 miles an hour. We're in contact with the ball for 1/2000th of a second. Okay, that's 80 times faster than a blink of an eye. So incredibly small amount of time. The club's rotating 2,000-3,000 degrees per second at some points in time, down by the ball in some players, with driver especially. And if we're 6 degrees off, the ball is going out of play, essentially. Okay. Well, first of all, like what is 6 degrees? Well, 6 degrees is 1 second on a clock. Okay, 1 second on a clock. So in other words, 6 degrees is that. Okay, I don't know from the camera if you can see that. I was 6 degrees open, ish. I'm guessing here. 6 degrees close is that. Okay, again, we're swinging this club at 120 miles an hour. We're in contact with the ball for 1/2000th of a second. That's all the information the ball gets to be going where it's going, other than wind, of course. But all the things that we can control, so to speak. And this club's rotating down by impact 2,000 degrees per second. Good luck. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's insane that we even have this ability as an average golfer, like a 10 handicap, to be able to have a predictable shot up count is pretty fascinating. Okay. One thing I did hear recently, Mike Finney brought this up at Coach Camp, and this blew my mind. Just purely in your skin, you have about 15 degrees of give, of play. So in other words, if I grab the club here and hold this in my left hand here, and you kind of watch, I'll try to hold my hand pretty flat and just grab the face. Without moving my hand, I can change this face by about probably 15-ish degrees. Okay, so all those other factors that I mentioned, plus this, I mean, that's mind-blowing. Like literally our skin, nothing we have control over, has potentially 15 degrees of twisting in that face that can occur. And yet we can do it pretty well. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because if all of these factors go into these small, tiny, tiny differences go into why the ball does what it does, it drives me crazy sometimes as instructors, as a golfers, as my students, etc., when we hit a shot and we blame it on swing or technique or something like that, especially one shot. Like, I don't know, like crazy stuff can happen to make your club 3 degrees open, okay? And the ball's going to go 20 yards right, 30 yards right, whatever it is, right? 6 degrees, pretty big. That doesn't happen too often. Like, there's crazy stuff that can happen. So to me, it's insane to be like, hey, my left hip didn't open up as much on that swing, because it probably did. It probably did the same thing. Or, hey, I didn't do something different, I don't know, with my big toe, right? That stuff, that technique thought is kind of a crazy thing to think when, hey, all that could have happened is I had this club face just a tick open. Okay, so just wanted to kind of put that out there and put it into perspective of, hey, what does really matter when we're trying to make our ball do different stuff? Yes, technique matters, but it probably shouldn't be the first place that we go to. Again, in my history, my understanding of this research that's out there, and it still could be proven correct, there are very few things that actually help control this. Okay? There's maybe a couple that help, but even then, there's some really great players that don't do those things. Okay, so food for thought. Thanks.